Hi, this is Sunny from Sunny Starlight channel, and today I'm making a video after a long time because we've had the passing of the great legend Dilip Kumar on the 7th of July 2021, who was one of the greatest actors in the world. Many of you may not know him, but people who do know him certainly revere him very much, and he's well known throughout the world. So I thought, what better way to pay a tribute to him by talking about him, and also to invite a guest on my channel after we've watched the film together. So say hello to Melanie from the Pardesi channel, and the link will be in the description down below. We've also done a quick chat about another film of his, Madhumati, which you can catch on her channel, which again, I'll post the link down below. But hello, Melanie.
Hello. I was so glad that you messaged me because it had been too long since we'd had one of these wonderful chats. And you are the expert on Bollywood history, and there's no better person for me to discuss the great Dilip Kumar and some of the classic films from the 1950s. I was so glad that you encouraged me to watch both of these films. And I'll give a little bit of background on why you suggested this particular film for me. The film is called Yahudi, which means the Jew, right? Or is it plural, or is it just
well, I think it's probably the Jew,
right? So personally, my husband is Jewish and our children are Jewish, and so it was fascinating to me because this film is a sword and sandal epic, like a Ben-Hur, like, a Ten Commandments kind of era. I mean, it's black and white, but it's of that same ilk, it's of that same kind of genre. And my heart stopped when I saw Dilip Kumar in a yarmulke, which is the name of the little skull cap that he wears in parts of the film, when he's pretending to be Jewish to court Hannah. And all of the names, I mean, some of them had a little bit different pronunciation, but you have Ezra, you have Elijah. He chooses the Jewish name of Moshe, which means Moses, which has, again, he is a prince of Rome instead of Moses was a prince of Egypt, who then, became one of the Jewish people. So, there were just so many parallels and delicious little moments. But like I said, I was just like, oh, my heart, Dilip Kumar, yarmulke. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's why I picked you, Melanie, because I think obviously I knew you hadn't sort of been exposed to Dilip Kumar as much. You'd seen one of his films, which was Mughal Azam, which everybody knows about, was a great classic.
But
I thought, so I thought, well, what better way to sort of get you introduced more to Dilip Kumar. So I recommended Madhumati and Yahudi, which is the film we're going to talk about in a minute after we've spoken about the great man himself. But I was just dying to see your reaction to this film, because as you quite rightly explained, that you have a Jewish connection, and I wanted you to sort of see it because this film itself was just so unique that nobody's probably not many people have heard about it in this day and age. But it's as you said, a sort of sword and sandal Romanesque type of film, which you see in the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, The Robe, those kind of films. The only difference being that it's actually acted by Indian actors. So everything was true to the kind of era, or the period that they were telling the story about. So that you had names like Marcus, Prince Marcus, Hannah, Ezra, Julius Caesar, Octavia, Brutus, all of those characters. So it's just amazing. I knew it would blow your mind, because
I know, it's just like
I'm watching an Indian film, yet it's a Roman epic, like Ben-Hur, and you think, what's going on? Anyway, let's talk about the great man himself first of all, because he was renowned in India and greatly revered and loved, and all actors look up to him as this big beacon of acting, because he was the first one who started what's now known as method acting, well before Marlon Brando started it, because Marlon Brando came later on in the late 40s, whereas Dilip Kumar started his career in the early 40s. So he developed this style of acting where it was very sedate. He was very into the character. He inhabited the character completely, lived that part of the character instead of just playing the character or pretending to play the character.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of realism in his performances, and he was very handsome, very dark and broody, and very expressive eyes. And of course, he internalized his sort of emotions, and then he brought them to the forefront, even without dialogue, and we could just relate to this great man's acting presence. So, you know, he was an absolute legend, and he will be still looked up to by the future generations that are going to come along. And he did a lot and lots of films, you know, different genres like comedy, romance, drama, and tragedy. And he was known mostly as the tragedy king, because most of his films, he had a lot of angst and a lot of tragedy. And, you know, most of the films, he died at the end. So, you know, of course, rightly so, that it was called the tragedy king.
Yeah, I mean, certain actors can have, you know, they can be great at comedy, and another actor just can't do comedic timing.
Sure.
Or, but there's something, you know, a truly great actor can, you know, not just sit there and bawl or rant and rave and scream, but show you their inner agony, show you what's going on in their head by their expressions. That is where the magic happens. And Dilip Kumar just does that like nobody's business. He is emoting to the camera, drawing us in to what his character is going through, whether it's falling in love. But I could just see, you know, these two films that I've seen, and Mughal Azam, like he just has, there's something about him that you're just so compelled, and he shows this tragedy, he shows this agony, and you just feel it so deeply seeing what he's going through on screen. And not every actor can do that. Not every actor can move us in that way. And I can see his influence on so many of the actors of today. We mentioned Shah Rukh Khan. I mean, as I was, okay, it's not that Shah Rukh is imitating Dilip Kumar, but it's an homage. He's obviously internalized and learned from watching all of these great performances. And that's what he is bringing, some of that same magic to the screen, because he's watched the master do it before him. And now he brings his own magic to it, his own way of doing it. But you can see, you know, this is where the origin happened. This is where it comes from. And even just the styling of the hair, I was just like, hey, early Shah Rukh, he's definitely was styling his hair in a similar way, and obviously riffing off the Dilip Kumar signature romantic tragic hero look. So it's fascinating, and just this story is something that was so unique. You know, I texted someone a picture of the poster, and I'm like, from my synagogue, I'm like, can you believe I am watching a Bollywood film where the guy is wearing a yarmulke? Like, it just was like something I couldn't have imagined. But this was the fashion of films, you know, in Hollywood at this same time. You know, these sword and sandal, these big epics. And really, you know, does this have a huge chariot racing? No, but we do get our hero introduction of Dilip Kumar. He is coming up on a chariot and has an accident with it right away, which is how we our heroine. But I was just like, is there anything more regal than here he comes down the street in a chariot? It was awesome. Because this film does have a lengthy setup. It's actually a brilliant plot, you know, is that you know, we have the evil Romans. There are, all of the Romans are evil except for our hero played by Dilip Kumar, but that you know, a child is wrongly accused, and like we hear the lion roar, actually throw the lions. And then someone takes revenge by stealing the child of a Roman official.
Yeah.
a daughter, and then the father of the child, Elijah, that had died, he adopts this girl, and calls her Hannah. And then not until the end does the original Roman father find out that his child was not killed, that she was still alive. And
Yes.
so it just, has right there, you have such an echo to biblical Jewish stories, in that, Moses, the whole story of Moses is that, the evil pharaohs said that all firstborn children had to be killed, and his mother hid him in a basket. Moses means drawn from the water. And then it's a daughter of Pharaoh that finds him. And Moses' sister says, oh, there's this nice here's this lady that could be his nursemaid. And so his mother gets to raise him in the palace.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's raised as a prince of Egypt. And so, there's so much, parallels here to Lydia becomes Hannah. And then when, Dilip's Prince of Rome then pretends to be Jewish, and he chooses the name Moshe, which means Moses. So I just found all of these kind of things delicious. But anyway, so we have a lot of setup. I'm like, Dilip's not like it. There's quite a bit of setting up the story, but then the payoff at the end is so great that it's worth all of this time setting this up. And I noticed the servant, Emmanuel, who kidnaps the child, it's the same actor, Tawari, I think his name is, he plays the evil overseer in
Madhumati. Yes.
And so he was great in both of these. So but the actor that plays Ezra, I'm blanking on his name, I don't know if you know who it is.
It's Sohrab Modi.
Oh my gosh, he was exceptional. He was good, really good. So it's not just that Dilip Kumar was so he was not just that he was so great, but just that also surrounded by great character actors around him. So I was just really taken with it. It was something so different than any other Hindi film that I've seen. And I absolutely, there was one scene where they were praying over bread that was a little, okay, but still, I'm just going with it, but it was, the story is so compelling and it stands up today. It just has that tension till the very last moments of what is going to happen. So anyway, I absolutely loved it, and I'm so glad that you recommend that I see it. And the funny thing is, we didn't even realize these two films that we're talking about literally came out in the same year. The same director, Bimal Roy. Madhumati was first, and then Yahudi, which is what I saw next. So I'm just like Indian audiences of 1958. I experienced the two films.
Exactly. And I just think, I'm glad that I recommended these to you, because I knew the second one, this Yahudi, would just blow your mind, because actually witnessing something which was predominantly something that was always portrayed in the Western Hollywood films, is suddenly sort of transported into an Indian setting. Yet, they kept true to the the religion and the naming. They didn't Indianize it as such. So there were quite a lot of films like that early on, but this was probably the one that just sticks out, really, really well made. And like you pointed out, that they tried to stay true to it. And yes, I know you were probably wincing a little bit with the breaking of the bread scene, but I think there's a big Jewish community in India, which it is a huge community. So I think what they had was, they did have an Indian Jewish priest presiding over it and sort of saying the words in the sermon. So maybe it didn't make sense to the true Jewish people.
It had the spirit. It had the spirit.
It had spirit.
Now, there's an interesting thing about the Jewish community and its connection to Bollywood. So I think in early days of Hindi cinema, there were certain roles that Muslim and Hindu parents didn't necessarily want their daughters to be actress and play those kind of roles. And specifically the actress Nadira, she is Jewish origin. So she was, you know, a Jewish Indian actress who was, you know, huge in her day. And I specifically remember her scene in Shri 420 where she's got a cigarette and she's got a drink and she's the vamp and she has her big swan. And again, she's playing a kind of part that maybe, you know, other actresses wouldn't have been wanting to play a part like that or allowed to play something like that. And so, you know, it's really interesting to me, this Jewish Bollywood connection that existed back to the beginning. And I can't remember, there was a silent film era actress that was huge, that was also Jewish.
She was called Nadira as well, I think. And yeah, there were a lot of Jewish actresses in the early days. But funny you should mention the Nadira in Shri 420, because her first role was as a leading lady to Dilip Kumar in the film called An, which is the arrogant princess. That's what it translates to. And she played almost like a masculine female princess. You know, it was actually very similar to something like The Taming of the Shrew. So
that sounds delicious.
So you have to watch that next, because it was a swashbuckling film, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it was the first time it was made in color. It was made by the same director who made Mother India. So I would put that as the next one on your list. But, you know, then Nadira did Shri 420, and unfortunately then she got cast as a vamp after that as a so, you know, unfortunately, But going back to Dilip Kumar, and, you know, he was one of the giants, as you said. You know, people look up to him like people look up to Marlon Brando in Hollywood. And, you know, you've got people like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, then derived from the same school as De Niro, as Brando. So what we've got here is we've got all the actors from Amitabh Bachchan to Shah Rukh Khan to the latest batch like Ranveer Singh and Ranbir Kapoor, and possibly, you know, more generations to follow, who will take inspiration from the style of acting that Dilip Kumar did. And, you know, they will continue his legacy, I think, in that style of acting. And what he brought to his acting was this kind of realism, which was unheard of, possibly even in the 50s, and even more so now, I think, because people tend to shout and it's very melodramatic and what have you. But he kept his performance very centered, very grounded. And, you know, he did actually sort of make an effort to sort of, you know, not be like the other actors of his generation, because at that time a lot of the actors on screen were from stage. So, you know, they had this way of acting which was just facing the crowd up front, and that was it, and just projecting. Whereas he was very aware of the camera positionings, where he looked, how he was being perceived, how to modulate his voice, because the camera was that near to him, the microphone was that near to him. So I think he was one of those early pioneers who actually crafted the art of acting very well. And funny you should mention Sohrab Modi, who played Ezra, because he again was from a stage background. And in certain parts of this film, he did actually sort of sound like he was acting on stage. But the delicious part of it was that if you were Indian, and I'm so sorry that you missed out on some of these nuances, but all his dialogue was actually in rhyme.
Wow.
So it was very, very good, because it was much more impactful. And funnily enough, I mean, Dilip Kumar gets nominated for the big awards for films. This film didn't have that many awards nominated, but the one person who did get nominated was Sohrab Modi, funnily enough. He didn't win, of course. Just going back to awards.
He deserves a nomination, though, because
he does. Yeah, because
it was a standout.
Yeah, and as I said, you missed out on this beautiful sort of the rhyming that he did with every couplet. You know, the two lines that he did, it was almost rhyming. So, you know, it was just delicious to watch. So his performance was maybe a little bit loud, but it was still notable and worthy of a nomination. And just going back to Dilip Kumar himself, and for people who don't know on the channel, the Indian version of the Oscars is called the Filmfare Awards, and the very first Filmfare Award was actually in 1954, which Dilip Kumar won, and then he subsequently followed it up with 3 more wins. So he got 4 consecutive Best Actor awards, and then the following year he wasn't nominated for this, but he was nominated for Madhumati, which won 9 Filmfare Awards, and he held that record for about 37 years until your favorite film, DDLJ, with Shah Rukh Khan, broke that record by winning 10 Filmfare Awards. So Dilip Kumar has won, I think, in total about 8 Filmfare Best Actor nods.
He's like the Meryl Streep of Hindi
cinema. Yeah. So along with Dilip Kumar, we had the main lead actress, who's another huge megastar called Meena Kumari. And she is known as the tragedy queen because her films were also very tragic, where she either died or she was always in pain and sorrow. So the 2 of these coming together was just absolutely brilliant.
Electric.
But, let me just point out right now that they've done a number of films together, and there's the majority of their films together were actually sort of swashbuckling comedies and romantic films. So, if I recommend some other films to you, I mean, the one after this was released, I think, was Kohinoor, which Dilip Kumar won Best Actor for, was again with Meena Kumari, and it was a very light-hearted, kind of a Zorro film where he plays, a man in disguise who goes out and robs the rich for the poor, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, these two have.
There was one scene. There was really only one big sword fight scene in this film, but it was still amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, Errol Flynn, eat your heart out, like, because Dilip Kumar was so great. And when you had mentioned that he had done so many other kind of swashbuckling kind of roles, I was really glad that. I mean, there's a lot of heavy drama in this film, but I was glad that there was at least that one big heroic moment. Again, something very different from Madhumati, where he has like some fist fights where it's like compared to today, like you really see the fist put away from the person's face. But anyway, I just saw, I mean, he's good at action. I mean, his best thing may be showing this tragedy and anguish, and boy, at the end of this film, does he really get to show off that. But that was just a super fun part of the film at the beginning, where he has this heroic sword fight scene. I absolutely love that. I mean, speaking about his acting style, like, he just I mean, I love the scenes with Meena, who's playing Lydia / Hannah. They just the romance of it, amazing.
Absolutely.
Just crackling chemistry, so good. And then when she realizes she's been lied to, that he's been putting on this persona to worm his way into her household so that he can see her, the anguish that she shows, the betrayal, and just, oh my gosh, like, it was, I've been feeling like, Bollywood and South India have been holding back, understandably so, some of their best films, waiting for theaters to open again. And what's been, and I totally understand that, but it's been an agony for movie lovers. We've been getting films coming to streaming, but they're not at the highest.
They're not the big budget films. They're not the huge films.
They're not the highest level. And this has just been such a breath of fresh air for me to see the best of the best. And the of these actors and their performances, and the writing of these 2 films was so good. And just compelling stories. and the angst, and like, nobody does it better, the angst and whatever, like in
Yeah.
the film, and so I just, it was just so awesome and I'm so glad that you encouraged me to watch this. And the Dilip Kumar, scene towards the end, I mean, we get a foreshadowing at the beginning that he's hurt himself, and
Yeah.
the physician says, don't get this ointment anywhere near your eyes or you'll instantly be blind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I know something's happening with that later on. And oh my gosh, just the way he plays that scene when he comes out and he's first blind.
Yeah.
Wow. It was amazing. I mean,
it was
so stunningly good. So stunningly good.
I mean, the whole tragedy of the whole piece is in that one moment where he makes that one decision too quickly. And, but, it's sort of, we do get a kind of a happy ending. I mean, obviously it's an old film, so spoilers galore here. We're not going to hold back.
Right.
But, like you said, the setup was brilliant. It was more of a romance story, like The Robe with Richard Burton and Gene Simmons. So it concentrated more on that. And then when it finally sort of took off, when she discovers that he's really a Roman pretending to be a Jew, is when it all starts to unravel and it starts to get a little bit more dramatic. And, it just sort of gets into this final tragedy, the last run. And then you get this kind of the same kind of scene that you get in the end of the film, The Robe, with Richard Burton and Gene Simmons walking off into the light, where he's blind and yet he could see this light of a new dawn, where they're going to walk towards, and they finally sort of go off into that kind of sunset sort of feeling. It absolutely blew my mind, because if you think about it, the first couple of scenes where the little boy looks over the ledge to see the Romans passing underneath, and he leans over and the tile falls onto the head, that was very similar to Ben-Hur. There was a scene in Ben-Hur which did exactly the same thing. Ben-Hur came a year later after this film. So, there was something, I mean, maybe they saw this scene and they took that as inspiration or whatever, but it was certainly done before Ben-Hur. So I thought, there's a parallel there somewhere, and then just looking at the kind of characterizations that they had. I mean, the costumes were a little bit more Indianized, if you like. They weren't the traditional Roman costumes, but I can forgive that. But they made an effort, because it wasn't totally Indian, because I think in those days you didn't flash your legs or whatever. So I think even the men, so they had to have long robes. But on the whole, they stayed true to the period that they were telling the story of. And just going on to Meena Kumari as well, I mean, a great actress who's done many films with Dilip Kumar, both excellent chemistry in every single film that you've seen. Every single film of theirs is a hit. And you've got somebody like a character actor who's a senior, Sohrab Modi, who used to be, I mean, you've got to see his catalogue of films. I mean, the ones that he's done. He's done the original Manikarnika that Kangana Ranaut did recently. So he did one called Jhansi Ki Rani, I think it was Sohrab Modi. Yes, it was. So yeah, he's got this huge catalogue of films as well. Then you've got Hannah's father. Again, it's played by a character actor called Nazir Hussain, and he again comes from the stage, so his acting was a little bit loud as well. But on the whole, for some reason it brings the film very grounded, because it's the director Bimal Roy who made both films, Yahudi and Madhumati. His vision is always much more based in realism and much more natural, and Dilip Kumar's style of acting is again very much similar to naturalism and realism. So I think the coming of the two together, it just brings that little bit of difference to what we're normally used to seeing. And I think like you said, right at the end, I mean, Dilip Kumar's eyes when he goes blind, just absolutely heart-wrenching, but it conveys so much to us as an audience, because in that very short scene, because he actually asks for poison because he wanted to kill himself. Thank God he didn't, because his friend Antonio didn't provide him with that. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy altogether.
Yeah.
But thank goodness it worked out in the end. What did you think of the music? Because again, the music was such a delight, and it was such a huge hit in terms of its musical numbers. I mean, what did you think of the musical numbers?
I mean, seeing the two films, Madhumati and Yahudi, back to back, I have to say that I enjoyed the songs in Madhumati more, but the music is top notch in this film as well. It fit into the storyline and where they were doing things, and the love songs. Oh my gosh, I mean, just so there's just nothing like an Indian hero expressing his love in song. There's just something special about that. So I really did enjoy it. But like I said, I mean, I know that Pardesi song from Madhumati is the one that's really stay with me, and the Scorpion song.
Yeah, exactly.
I can understand that. I mean, I could totally get why all of these films just had blockbuster hits. I mean, this is again, it's the collaboration, not just great writing and great directing, but also having top-notch music and soundtracks for these films to propel them into being big hits.
That's why they were so huge in that day and age, because songs weren't just put in there for the sake of them. It actually helped the story along, because you couldn't have the overt sort of romance that you can get these days in films. Right. So you had to be very subtle about it, and it was done through song and dance. And so that took up a lot of time to build up the romance, and you got great music in return, and people sort of love singing along to these songs and just dancing along to it. I'm going to tell you one thing about this, and you will never ever unhear it or unsee it after I say this to you, because anytime you see Meena Kumari, your eye will be drawn to it, like mine is every single time. Okay, so here's a fun fact. Meena Kumari, she started off life as an actress, a child actor, and then she progressed to a sort of lead actress. And in her very first film, she won the Best Actress Award for Filmfare. And soon after, I think she did a couple of films. And then she had an accident where her little finger on her left hand was chopped off. Right? So she was always self-conscious about it. So if you look at any of her films, she'll never ever show it, because she'll always have a scarf or a sari or something wrapped around it, or she'll hide it. She'll hide it. And now that you know this fact, your eye will always get drawn to it, like mine does. So watch out next time you see Meena Kumari. She always hides her left hand, because she's got her finger chopped off just from there.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like that's a fact that I learned about Fred Astaire, is that he was very self-conscious about how large his hands are, and he wanted to look very elegant. So he would kind of hold his hands in kind of a weird way that made them look smaller, like and like, again, once you see it, you can never unsee it. And I'm always looking for that,
Yeah, I'm always looking for Meena Kumari's hand, and it's the left hand. You'll see it. Just go back and watch Yahudi, just the song or something, and you'll see exactly what I mean. And now you see Meena Kumari in any film, your eye will be drawn to it, like mine is. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with it. But I think this film was just one of those things that I think you needed to watch, you personally, because your love of Indian cinema is so great, because now you sort of, I mean, you've been on my channel a few times, I've been on your channel, and we're great friends, and we talk about these things, and your knowledge is ever so growing every single time, and you can make those links between oh yes, I remember that scene, or oh, that's a reference to that film, or I can see where that reference is coming from, or you pick up the sort of nuances in sort of dialogue or something. And so I think, the only step remaining for you is to actually learn Hindi. And I think, you'll really just get the whole gist of it.
I picked up some phrases here and there.
I know.
But I mean, I did feel like the language of this film The subtitles of the copy that I was watching on YouTube were particularly good because it
Yes.
really conveyed.
Yes.
I felt like it was an elevated level of writing for the dialogues and what everyone was saying, and the English was conveying that. I didn't get the rhyming that you were talking about, but
No.
you know, I just could tell that this was of another level, because sometimes you feel like sometimes Hindi films are just, the dialogue is just so simplistic. Maybe it's an action film that they're aiming for you know, a simpler crowd, you know what I mean? And this film was just at a level above, and I really appreciated that. I mean, it was coming through to me, even though I don't speak Hindi, and I do think that the two supporting actors who played the two fathers, Ezra and Brutus, you know, I think them having a more bombastic theatrical style to their acting actually fit with their characters. And so specifically, you know, Ezra just had some great speeches in the last part of the film. We have the wedding scene where Hannah confronts before Dilip Kumar's character is going to be married to Octavia, and because he's a prince of Rome, and she stops the wedding and says, you know, I've been wronged, and then her father starts in, Ezra starts in on his rants, and then he also has the big reveal scene to Brutus, who's about to throw them into vats of boiling oil. And you know, and he has a big, you know, the big speech there as well. And so I just felt like his acting, being a little bit more over the top, just fit his character. I just and then like it makes a good contrast with what Dilip is doing with his character. I mean, I haven't seen really Dilip Kumar do any kind of comedy. There was just only one kind of more comedic scene when the Octavia character, her chariot breaks down or something, and she ends up at the Jewish home. And so Dilip Kumar is trying to hide behind curtains and all these different things so that she won't see him. But you know, I want to see more of Dilip Kumar's work. I want to see, because obviously this is a giant who, while he may be known for tragedy, I can see that he would excel in all different kind of genres. So I'm looking forward. I mean, that's the thing, that the man passed away at a full life age of 98, but he's left us a legacy of so many films, of decades long career, and for us to continue to cherish and watch, and for young actors to study and emulate one of the greats.
I think, well, he carried on acting until the late 80s. So he's had a very long and fruitful career. And one of the last few films that he made was a classic called Shakti with Amitabh Bachchan, where he won the Best Actor award at that age. So that's another recommendation of his later films where he's much older. But he gives a very powerful performance, and Amitabh Bachchan actually sort of matches up to him as well, because most people thought, you know, it'll be walked all over by Dilip Kumar, but you know, that's the only time they collaborated. You know,
I think about that. There was that famous Filmfare cover that had the three, that had Shah Rukh and Amitabh and Dilip Kumar all photographed together, like all of the greats, you know, of their respective eras, and that's such a great photo. I mean, because
we're all stemming from Dilip Kumar.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
His proteges kind of thing, you know, the ones that influenced them. So yeah, I mean, that cover, I remember it vividly now, now that you mention it. But in that era, I mean, Dilip Kumar was the king, along with two other giants, Raj Kapoor and Dev Anand. And we haven't seen the kind of likes of those kind of people who ruled Bollywood, and, you know, were a guaranteed sort of box office hit until much later on, when we've had Shah Rukh, Amir and Salman. So, you know, that was the trend.
You know, and speaking, you know, it's like the giants of that era, and then there was Amitabh, and then there's the three Khans now. But I don't see anyone coming up who you know, I know we're in a more fractured kind of viewing experience anyway. I mean, India is actually more unique in how people are still so devoted to seeing things on the big screen. I mean, when they're open, when we're not going through all of what we're going through with COVID. But you know, I just, there's no one that I'm seeing right now coming up that matches these giants. So and I'm not pushing Amir and Shahrukh, you know, and Salman off the stage, but at what point are they going to start playing more of the father roles, you know? I mean, they're all in their 50s. They're you know, and I don't know, will it be Shahrukh introducing his children, you know, debuting his daughter, or what? I don't know. You know, what will we see coming up? I know Shahrukh is got some action movies lined up, which I think, you know, listen, if Liam Neeson in his 60s can do action, you know, I'm ready for it. So, but I don't know. It's, you know, it's only Amir really has fully gone, like in a film like Dangal, playing a full father role, showing the gray hair and the whole thing. You know, so Salman played a father too, but like I'm not like, you know, pot belly, bald, you know, gray hair.
He was still muscular and still sort of like the Salman Bhai, you know. So I know exactly what you mean.
So we're in a transition point, I guess is what I'm saying. In the same way when Dilip Kumar left, you know, ended his career really, and other big names were coming, like Amitabh, and then Shahrukh was coming. So we're in a transition point, and I don't know, you know, I don't know who's going to be coming next, or if it's going to be a star from the South, or, you know, or what's going to happen. So
I don't think we're going to see the likes of Dilip Kumar again, because I think it was just at the beginning of cinema, when cinema was taking off, the talkies, if you like, not even the silent era. He came in just after the talking movies came in. And so I think we're never going to see that like again, because, or that kind of mega stardom where somebody actually invents something or is the first to do something and has such an influence in that era, where everything that they do is a mega hit, and you know, people just adore them. It's like Hollywood now. You're not going to get those Hollywood idols, you know, that you got in the early days, like Jimmy Stewart or Clark Gable or Cary Grant. You know, we're never going to see the likes of those again. So I think it's an era well gone, but we have to accept that this is going to be a new kind of generation. You might get the odd brilliance from a performance out of an actor or an actress, but you're never going to get this longevity that they cultivated, the superstar and the mystique around them, because you know, now we've got the social media and the internet, so there is none of that left anymore. So I think that's partly the reason. But you know, there's no denying that this man was an absolute legend and a great actor. And as I said, it was publicized or announced in all major news articles, television news around England and in America as well, that you know, this actor has passed away. Now, a lot of the audience may not know who this actor is, especially in the West, but the people who have heard about him thought it highly enough to mention it or write about it, because he was well known. And as I said to you earlier, that he could have been an international star, because he was actually offered the role in David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia. And of course, he turned it down because he wanted to play Lawrence of Arabia himself. But the role actually went to Omar Sharif, who then became a very big international star. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Dilip Kumar would have had the same career graph as Omar Sharif, but he would have had that launch platform that Omar Sharif got worldwide, and he could have pursued a different path in Western films or Hollywood. So it was an opportunity
mind-boggling to think about. It's mind-boggling to think about it. You know, I mean, it's it would have been incredible. Not that he didn't have an incredible career, but just what could have been, if he had collaborated
Yeah.
in that film, he would have had a huge impact.
Well, he would have been known worldwide.
Yeah,
That's the main
exactly.
thing. People today would be sort of going on about, that first Indian actor, great actor, not not the first Indian actor, but the greatest actor. I mean, people know Irfan Khan now in
Right.
Hollywood, but
Yeah.
what are his roles? I mean, apart from Spider-Man or Jurassic Park, where he plays these little itty bitty roles. But had Dilip Kumar done the role of Omar Sharif in Lawrence of Arabia, which was a meaty role,
Yeah.
and in that day and age, he would have got similar parts then. He would have been an icon, even in the West as well. So
Yeah.
I think, it's an opportunity missed. He could have been world renowned, as opposed to just being renowned in India. But, I think he was happy in his decision. He kind of sort of lived with it. And, he's acquired that sort of status in India as well. So,
I mean, it's interesting. We're in a different climate now where Netflix, for instance, is producing their own films, and they have an eye to a worldwide international audience. Now, it used to be like a Hollywood blockbuster. Maybe there would be one Chinese actor or something trying to get Chinese audiences to see the film. But there's an upcoming film with Ryan Gosling called The Gray Man, and the actor Danish has a part in it. So, and I don't know how big of a part, but the Russo brothers, who are producing that film, congratulated on him on his latest Tamil release that came out on Netflix last month. So it is a different world, in that there could be more collaborative projects where people are looking outside of their own little bubble and making these connections and doing looking for talent all over the world. And so, I mean, it's interesting, like someone like Shahrukh, think about if surely he had been offered something, but again, it may have been something like, I want to play Lawrence of Arabia. I don't want to play the villain or whatever, so maybe nothing was what he considered worthy of him taking the time to go to Hollywood and do something. So I don't know. It's a new world, and so it'll be interesting to see.
Well, it will happen. It will happen, because I mean, you've got the likes of Priyanka Chopra, who's actually sort of opened the doors.
That's true. Right.
And she's sort of gone mainstream Hollywood, and she's doing a lot of projects there. Hrithik has been signed up with a Hollywood agent. So, things are there in the pipeline. Whether they've got time to sort of divide between the two industries, we don't know yet. So, I mean,
I know, Priyanka's had some issues balancing. I mean, she's done things like The Sky is Pink that are still in Hindi. But then the interesting thing was, then she went on American television and promoted it. So she went on the traditional evening talk shows, the Jimmy Fallon. She went on Ellen, which is, a big afternoon program. So, I mean, again, it's interesting how, like, you're right. She's opening doors, and she's cross promoting things that are not even English language films. So once we come out of this pandemic, who knows what is percolating in the background that might come to be. But in any case, the wonderful thing about streaming is that so many of Dilip Kumar's films are available. I know several of them are on Amazon Prime, for instance. And the New York Times even, posted, if you've heard this great actor died, here are 3 performances of his to see, and they showed where to find them online. And so, I think that's great, is that it's accessible, and people can go back and see the legacy and see these great films. And I'm so glad that you urged me to see these 2 films, because it was just wonderful. So
are you going to carry on watching his films now?
I definitely will, because be still my
because
heart.
you've now got a crush on him as well, which is a bit too late, but yes.
Well, you know what? I have the same crush on Fred Astaire and Cary Grant and a lot of other people who have, you know, have gone before Dilip. But, you know, I love old Hollywood movies too. Something being in black and white is not a barrier to me. I know some young people, they don't like to watch even something that's was
Well, not
filmed in
just
the
black and
90s
white,
or
but
the
also
80s. You know,
subtitles.
well, beyond subtitles, if it's not the HD kind of video that we have of television and video and films today, they have a problem watching some of this older stuff.
Sure,
and I don't. I mean, I can see beyond some of the glitches and whatever in the copy that YouTube might have to see how great it is. And
well, let me just point out that the YouTube copy that I sent you and that I watched was actually in HD. So
it was fantastic, but I'm just saying,
fantastic,
you know, some of these films, when they transferred them, they might have a little glitch here or there. It doesn't, you know, that's not something that's going to scare me off, or the fact that it's in black and white. Sometimes a film can be even more beautiful because it's in black and white, and
absolutely,
and convey a different kind of a feeling and atmosphere that it wouldn't have if it was in color.
As we discovered in Madhumati,
Exactly.
because it was a sort of eerie kind of film, you know, in parts, and that mood actually helped. That the black and whiteness helped. But I'm glad you mentioned the fact that Dilip Kumar's films, as well as many other Indian films, are available on Netflix and Amazon. So if you've actually heard, I mean, I'll urge the viewers that if you've actually heard of Dilip Kumar or you've heard the news and you have Amazon or Netflix, check out one of his movies. They're all great because he's such a fantastic actor. That,
or even,
you know,
or even YouTube. You should put in the link.
Even YouTube, absolutely.
This film, for instance, I watched on YouTube, and it had wonderful subtitles. So a lot of these old library of films are available for free on YouTube. And with the technology that we have today, I mean, I just Chromecast it onto my big TV, and it was wonderful.
And you know, you mentioned black and white, but I mentioned earlier on that he's done swashbuckling roles, and you know, with Nadira, her first film was Aan, Aan. It's called The Arrogant Princess, basically a taming of the shrew tale, where Dilip Kumar is very light-hearted. He's swashbuckling, almost elfin, and it's in color. So I'm going to send you a link to that. It's on YouTube as well. So I'm going to send you a link to that if it's not available on Prime or Netflix. But yeah, you know, these old actors, it's an end of an era that Dilip Kumar has passed, because that's the last of the greatest who's gone at the ripe old age of 98. So, you know, I don't think we've got anybody else left at that age who is that great in Indian cinema, never mind just Bollywood, but Indian cinema as such, as a whole. So I think
I'm just thinking about, you know, I mean, Amitabh, may he live long. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
But just thinking about, he will be the next earthquake.
Yes.
When he passes, that is also going to just
absolutely
be,
I think Dilip Kumar, I don't know if
you
I don't know if you saw Dilip Kumar's funeral, but he had a state funeral with a flag of India wrapped on his coffin, and he had a 21-gun salute as well. So, you know, he was that much revered that, you know, they actually sort of said, he's going to have that big funeral. You know, even in these times of COVID, although India has kind of opened up and relaxed its rules, even though, you know, everywhere else, where, you know, even in India, where it's still raging on, people keep relaxing rules, and they keep reopening up the country, and then they go back down and shut down. But, you know, we'll hopefully see an end to it, like you said, and we'll get back to the cinemas and see things. And hence, you know, that's why I haven't been on my channel regularly, because as you said, there aren't any big films as such. You get these small films on Netflix which aren't sort of not necessarily blockbusters, but big films in terms of good storytelling, good budget, you know, good acting. You get these smaller films, so hopefully you know, we'll get back to normal at some point. But I think, you know, I'm glad that I recommended this to you, and we've got to do more of these, and I'm going to recommend some more of Dilip Kumar. But thank you so much for talking to me today, and remembering Dilip Kumar and watching his films and loving it. And I knew you'd love Yahudi. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. I'm going to put, please follow Melanie on the Pardesi channel. I'll put all the links down in there in the comments below, and also check out our conversation about Madhumati, which is the other film that Melanie watched and I watched together. So, and of course, when I say watch together, Melanie's in America and I'm in the UK. So it's not exactly sitting on the sofa next to each other, but we do watch
well,
these films.
I was still messaging you while I was watching. This is so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that you were really sort of blown away by this, and you suddenly said, "I've got a crush on Dilip Kumar," and I was like, "Oh God, you know, a little too late. If she'd only discovered him before, she would have probably stalked his house or something." But never mind. Better late than never, and you know, it's great. But thank you so much, Melanie, for doing this chat and celebrating Dilip Kumar's life, the legend that he was. And hopefully we'll see each other soon and speak about something else soon.
Definitely.
So thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.